I've come on just a minute early um, because I want to get everything rolling rather than waiting for it to roll. Here we go. Just trying to get everything lined up so that we can begin our lesson for tonight. Give me just a second here. I pray that you're staying as warm as you possibly can, because it is a little chilly out there. It's a little cold, and we want to make sure that you are staying as warm. You need to also know that this weather is going to be like this for quite some time. So try to stay warm, try to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. There are many who are becoming sick and ill because this weather is rather treacherous, and you really don't want to find yourself. Hey Jenna, how you doing? You really don't want to find yourself in a position where you're ending up in the hospital. Asking you if you would be kind enough to share with those who may be coming on board here. Wanted to get a couple of invitations out real quick, and then I'll be ready to roll. I'll be ready to roll. And while I'm doing this, we talked last week about Moses and how Moses went through this process. Went through this process of preparation. And because he went through that process of preparation, it equipped him, to be able to do what God had preordained for him to do. I'm just sending out my invitations to everybody. And I am asking that you would be kind enough to share this with others as we continue. And Cora, I got your message about you being 10 minutes late. It's all good. And so I just want to get these out here. I started a minute earlier so that I could get these invitations out as quick as I could. And so we looked at Moses last week. We looked at the things that he did. We looked at his life. We looked at how he messed up. And I want to, remember I told you on last week that right about now is probably one of the worst times on the planet for suicides and for death that takes place due to the fact that the spirit of depression runs rampant during these times, and people are losing loved ones and relatives, and things are just happening in a catastrophic manner. And so it takes its toll on you. It takes us, hey Carolyn, it takes its toll. Terry A, how are you? It takes its toll on you when you are trying to live the best you know how to do what God would have you to do, and it looks like everything is falling apart. It looks like nothing in your life is working out. It looks like there's catastrophe. Hey, Daryl, Lavernon, good to see you. Katrina, Marilyn, my niece, Nancy, good to see you. Carletta, Bridget, we're grateful to God. Donovan, I see you back. You made it back at 6:30. And so when you look at these things and people struggle during this particular time of the year, it's due to the fact that depression. Hey, Sherry, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, all that other kind of good stuff that's going on. We struggle with this. This is a hard time for people to live. But there's one thing, as I was going over the lesson and as I was studying the lesson for tonight and just examining it, I found something, and the Lord just kind of dropped this in my spirit. I don't know if it'll be a blessing to you or not. I really don't know if it will. But the Lord dropped in my spirit, don't allow your past to serve your future. Now I got to talk about that for a minute, because many times our pasts feed our future. And the problem with the past feeding the future is it cannot feed that which is yet to come. It can only feed you on what has been. And 9 chances out of 10, it can only feed you on the things you've done wrong rather than the things that you have accomplished. I don't know if you've really paid attention to it or not, but many times when we talk about our past, hey, Jeanette, when we talk about our past and we talk about those things, Nancy, and we deal with that, we usually find ourselves in a position where all we talk about, all we look at, all we participate in is everything bad, everything negative, everything wrong, everything bent out of shape. And the truth of the matter is, Moses' past would have paralyzed him if he had not had a supernatural encounter with God. Beverly, did you hear what I said? Hey, Denise. And so here's the thing that many of us have to come to terms and to grips with, is that we will either allow our past to control us or to feed us, or we will learn from our past and allow that past to perpetuate us into something greater in the future. And the person I want to look at, I want to look at somebody. I preached about this, and again, I've tried to go back to T.D. Jakes' book, but I went back to Tony Evans' book, and in the midst of that, Tony Evans' book, the book is It's Not Too Late. And when I looked at it, okay, did y'all catch that, Katrina, Bridget? You caught that? Here's what you've got to see. I want to talk about a woman whose reputation was so bad that who would really want to be bothered with her? Who would really want to? And I want to talk about, how did she get there? Now, for some of you, you were there when I preached this series. I'm talking about Rahab, and every place in the Bible, they call her the harlot. They don't say, and I got a little spot on here. They don't say Rahab, the good woman of God, Rahab, the the powerful woman of God. Hey, Pat, how you doing? It talks about her as Rahab, the harlot, the hooker, the other terms that we use. They never talk about her in a positive sense when she's mentioned, though she's a powerful woman of faith. But I want to talk about something else before we get to the faith thing. How did Rahab get there? What happened in her psyche? What happened in her mentality? What happened to her, Minister Shaw? What happened to her that caused her to feel that the only way that she could sustain a living was by selling her body? Now, if anybody understands what prostitution is all about, a prostitute cannot do the sexual acts without a level of disconnect. Hey, Denise, good to see you tonight. There has to be a disconnect between the realities of their present existence that will allow them to perform sexual acts on anybody they come in contact with for the sake of money. And I got to deal with that. Could it have been, and again, these are presuppositions, could it have been that she had a bad childhood? Could it have been that she was raped as a young girl? Could it have been that there was something in the culture? Because you have to remember, with her being raised in the culture that she was raised in, there were many gods, there were many beliefs, there were many things. So in order for her to do what she did, she had to deassociate herself with her own humanity. Can I deal with this because you cannot do some things against your own self without disconnecting yourself from the reality of the consequences that take place when you do it. It had gotten to the point in her mind that the only way for her to survive was to develop skills that brought pleasure to people other than her. I wish I had somebody who caught what I just said. Did y'all catch that? You cannot enjoy what you do, because what you do, the motive is not for self-gratification. The motive for doing what Rahab did is in her psyche. She believed this was the only way for her to make a living, and not only the only way to make a living, but it was also the only way that she could find recognition in her life, because something else disconnected or something else pulled her from the reality of consequences. Oh, I hope I'm trying not to be real psychological in this, but you got to understand that a hooker can't be a hooker unless she's disconnected herself from reality. Until she's disconnected herself from the person that God had preordained for her to be, in order to become something totally different. And so we see very clearly here. Did you catch what I said, Carolyn? Thea, are you catching where I'm coming from? I need us to recognize that this woman could not have done what she did until she murdered her psyche, or anesthetized her psyche to the point that she could be with many and it not affect her. Though it did affect her, not affect her. But I need to talk about that, because it does not matter how disconnected her psyche was from the reality of what she is. God is going to take her to a place that she never thought she could accomplish by the use of two spies. Oh, can I teach this like the Lord has laid it in my spirit? Too many of us are so busy living in the mistakes of our past that we have convinced ourselves that the only way we'll ever make it, the only way we'll overcome, the only way we'll survive is through disconnecting ourselves with not only the reality of our own being, but the reality of the fact that God did not create us to be prostitutes, but God created us to position ourselves in place whereby not only do we bless, but become a blessing. Okay, did y'all, are y'all, so look at Rahab, if you will, because, and again, as I preached on Sunday morning, and I talked about the cave that the baby Jesus was born in, how a long time ago God decided to make the rock where it was, and somebody built a house, connected it to the rock, not realizing that the rock wasn't going to stay a rock, but it was going to become a cave. They were going to call it they were going to carve it out so it becomes a cave, and when it becomes a cave, there was a spot in the cave that they carved out of the wall to create a manger, not realizing that in the mindset of the man that owned the house, that owned the cave, that the thing that was going to be overwhelming is he thought it was just going to be for animals, and he didn't realize that God was going to shut every single door as Joseph and Mary were trying to find some place to abide. And he had built this rock, he had carved this rock out for a trough, not realizing that the Messiah was going to be laid in that trough, the Son of God, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Let me talk to y'all. Did I lose you? Let me talk to y'all. God will use even your hooker past terrible, tore up experiences to show you who he is. And see, what I've got to do is I've got to cease to allow my past to serve my future. Let's look at this girl. Let's look at this woman. Let's look at this woman. She's a hooker. Listen, she's a well-known hooker. Not only is she a well-known hooker, but she's a smart hooker. Yeah. I wish I had a couple people in here that caught what I said. She's an overwhelmingly intelligent hooker. Now, somebody might say, well, how in the world is she intelligent? She strategically made sure that her abode was on a wall that faced, that serviced, I just used that word, those on one side of the wall and those on the other side of the wall. Okay? Now listen. She was also not ashamed of her profession, because now, because of the deadness of her psyche, she now believes that revenue can take the place of relationship with God. Can I let that sink in for a minute? She is a well-known prostitute. She is not only known in the city, but she's also known outside of the city. And so in order for her, hey, Minister Rhonda, how you doing? And in order for her, excuse me, to sell her wares or to produce what she does, she has strategically built her abode in the wall. And because her abode is in the wall, she now provides access. Not only, hey Lisa, not only does she provide access for the people who live in the city, but she also provides access for those visiting or passing the city. So she's a brilliant marketer, because they didn't have cell phones and they didn't have internet. So in order for her to become or to be known for what, I'm sorry, it froze. There we go. In order for her to do what she does, she had to be good at what she did. Hey, Minister Michael, good to see. Are y'all catching where I'm coming from? She had to have proficiency in what she did. Hey, Minister Fleet, in order for her to gain the reputation, because everywhere she's mentioned in the Bible, she is mentioned as Rahab the harlot. And so all of a sudden, the word has gotten to her, and this isn't a new word. This is a 40-year-old word. Oh, y'all. All right. Hey, Pastor Wingfield. It's a 40-year-old word, because Israel has been across the Red Sea for 40 years. But the word is that somewhere along the line, these Israelites are coming to take over, to destroy, because it has been noised about that the God of the Israelites is stronger than any pagan god they have ever worshiped. Are y'all catching what I'm saying? And so all of a sudden, these spies show up. And when these spies show up, she knows what their purpose is. And I got to talk about that for just a moment. God never gives an assignment that does not have purpose. And that purpose is to be fulfilled. I want y'all to catch that. I want y'all to catch that. So what we see is two spies. What we see is a call girl, but can I go a little bit further? We are going to look at the faith of a call girl that saved her family. Okay. She's raised in a paganistic environment. She's adapted a lifestyle that's probably not pleasing to her own psychological well-being, but she does it because somewhere along the line something created that disconnect that caused her to feel that she was worthy of anything else other than what she's doing. In the midst of that, she's living in the wall. And because she's living in the wall, she understands quite clearly that in the midst of everything that's going on, that she now has access, not realizing that God positioned her abode in the wall so that when the spies showed up, they wouldn't have to work hard to find her. Oh, Jesus, Lord have mercy. I'm getting excited about that. See, many of us believe, excuse me, that things happen by accident. No, everything that comes into your life has a divine plan to it that is being executed by the will of God, even when you don't walk in the will of God. Now, see, I know that messed some of y'all up when I said that. Many things that God is doing in your life is in the will of God, even though you're not even walking in the will of God, because it's God's will that in the midst of your stumbling, he uses that stumbling to prepare you to walk sure-footed. When we talk about all things work together for good to them that love God and are the called according to his purpose, God takes the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, Pastor Dennis, how you doing, sir? Now listen, we don't use this as a cloak of maliciousness, but we need to recognize that God uses every facet, every walk, every moment of your existence to bring his will to pass, not just in your life, but in the lives of everyone you come in contact with. So here we go. The two spies go to the hooker's house. When they get to the hooker's house, the word gets out that there's some men at the hooker's house that don't look like they belong at the hooker's house. Because you know what? I don't care, Michael, I don't care who you are. You can never hide your identity. And so in the midst of this, Rahab has to make a decision. Are you catching what I'm saying? Hey, Cora, how you doing? Rahab has to make a decision because the men come to Rahab's house saying that it has been reported to us that two men have come to you, and these two men are to spy out where we are to destroy us. Rahab has to make a decision. She either caves in and turns them over, or by faith, she trusts that God, through these two men, will save her family. Now, somebody might say, well, you know, she told a lie, whatever. Listen to what I'm saying. She ain't saved, so she'll say anything, but she understands a God thing that these godless things don't understand. I know, I messed y'all up when I said that. She is getting ready. Y'all, I know y'all not ready for this. She is getting ready to cut a deal with God by faith. When the men come to her place, she tells them that they have left and pointed them in a wrong direction. After the soldiers have left, she carries on a conversation with them. She says, I want you to swear to me by the Lord. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. My Bible has Lord in capitals. What she is saying is, I want you to enter into covenant with me by the name of your God. Because her faith says, I may not know you personally, but hearing about you is enough to convince me that you are greater than the gods I've been serving. I know some of y'all didn't catch that. Some of y'all didn't catch that, okay? She says, I'm going to cut a deal with your God right now, because I realize that my God cannot and will not rescue me from your God. Now, I need us to look at something, because I don't think we've looked at this before. Or if you have, you notice the deal is not being cut to the spies. The deal that is being cut is to the God of the Israelites. Oh my God, okay? She says, there's two things she says. She reminds the spies that she spared their lives. She's letting the spies know. Now, I want you to know that if it wasn't for me, you'd be dead. Woo, that's some powerful stuff right there. I don't know, some people might think that's kind of arrogant. She's not trying to use them. She's trying to save her and her family from ultimate destruction. And so what we see here very clearly, she is letting them know that I have dealt kindly with you, and I want you, get this, to not just deal kindly with me, but I want you to include my family in that kindness. Now, when we talk about kindness, we're not talking about being nice or being friendly. What she is telling them is she understands that the Israelites are going to ambush her city. So she chooses a word that means loyalty or faithfulness. This word is used over 200 times in the Old Testament, referring to a specific agreement. And in this agreement, no one can nullify it because of the actions of Rahab. Woo. You know, you've heard me say on many occasions, delay is not denial. She is asking for covenant covering, because by faith, she says, I know your God is greater than any God I've ever seen before. Because, here we go. Dr. Wingfield, did you catch this? Here we go. For 40 years, we've heard about you. 40 years ago, y'all came through the Red Sea on dry land. We heard about you. There is not a God that we have served. Pastor Dennis, you catching it? There's not a God that we have served who has provided service to its people like the God of the Israelites. So what are we looking at here? What are we looking at here? We see clearly that this woman's faith in a God that she has never served motivates her to put her life on the line for the sake of her family. I'm going to move on here in just a minute. You need to remember clearly. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is not some arbitrary, misty movement. Faith is actually you moving in God, even when you can't see God, but you trust that God is there. Faith is not a blind leap of faith. It is a leap of faith into what you don't know, but you trust God does. Ooh, when we talk about this kind of faith that Rahab has, is similar to the faith, or the very same kind of faith that James talks about in James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. When we look at James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17, this is not the kind of faith that gets you into heaven. The faith that James is talking about, and this passage that James is dealing with, is letting it be known in no uncertain terms that the faith James is speaking of does something for you in this realm of experiences, not in the world to come. The faith that saved you is there, but there's also another level of faith that you have to believe God when you can't see God. Are y'all with me so far? James says, when he writes about faith in this passage in chapter 2, he's talking about the listeners are already saved. James is writing about God's saving power on earth. According to Strong's Concordance, the Greek word that James uses here is sozo, literally meaning to make well, to heal, to restore. James is specifically referring to God's restoring power in history, not his saving power in eternity. Here we go. Rahab's faith says, I believe that God will protect me and my family because of the covenant I've established with him, because of the kindness that I have shown towards you. This is the reason you got to be careful how you interact with people. You know, the Bible talks about be careful how you entertain strangers because you may be entertaining an angel unaware. The way that you interact with people may have a residual effect that causes blessings to come into your life when you need it. Rahab says, I kept you two alive. I provided covering for you. And now I want your God to cover me. And not only cover me, but I want your God to cover my family because I know that destruction is coming. And so God is saying, I need us to catch this. Let me slow down. God is saying to us that it does not matter what your past experiences have been. You may have been a hooker. You may have been an alcoholic. You may have had a bad relationship, a bad marriage. You may have had children out of wedlock. You may have gone through a myriad of crazy, off-the-chain, ridiculous experiences. But Rahab is saying, no matter what, I still know you can make me well. Let me calm down. I still know that you can restore me. I still know that even though my past history is scarred, I believe that you are God enough to get into my now and make my now and my tomorrow greater than the mistakes of my past. I wish somebody would shout on that one right there. If nothing else gives you confidence to know that you are not a castaway, that you are not a reject, that you're not a recluse, that you're not worthless. If anything ought to motivate you to live for God, it's the fact that no matter what you were, it means you don't have to remain what you've been. I know y'all didn't catch that. Y'all really didn't catch that. Pastor McLeod, how you doing? You need to understand is the God that we serve has the power to restore us to what he says we shall be. Again, I'm not, hey, Sister Soul, how you doing? I'm not saying that you take this as a means of getting out here and being stupid. What I am saying, if stupid shows up, you serve a God who will take stupid and turn it into victory. Okay, y'all not ready for me. And so we look at this very clearly. We need to understand that we already have faith that gets us into heaven. There's no problem. But we're no earthly good. And the reason we're no earthly good is because we don't have a testimony. And the reason we don't have a testimony is because we've never exercised faith. And the reason we've never exercised faith is because we've allowed our past failures, our past mistakes to feed our future. Ooh. I know y'all. And see, the problem with us is the enemy has convinced us that it will always be. One of the things that drives me insane about Youngstown is whenever you introduce something new or try something new, there are those who always say, why? It's always been like this. It'll always be like this. That is a defeated attitude. And the reason that people say stuff like that is because they've never exercised faith, because they've allowed their past to feed their future. And here's the killer. Here's the killer. Did you catch what I said, Daryl? Here's the killer. God is saying, if I brought you through the past, I can create a better future. If I've kept you in the midst of all of your craziness, Pastor Ross, how you doing? You mean to tell me that my power is so limited that I can't take you from where you are to where I preordained for you to be? Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it can't happen. I wish I had a couple people out here just to agree with me that you don't have to live where you've been. You don't have to stay where you are because you are too busy living beneath your privilege. And so what we see here very clearly is not only does God have the power to save, because he does, but the problem is you don't have the ability to believe God for what you haven't seen. You know people who always talk about how bad it is. You know people who always talk about it's terrible. You know people who always talk about how nothing ain't never going to change. It's always going to be like this. And it might be you. I'm going to let that marinate for a minute. It might be you. God has promised you an abundant life. Now, let me preface this, because see, some of y'all will be looking for a check. That's not what I'm talking about. Yes, God does want you to prosper. Yes, God does want you to have money, but I'm going to put a pin in that for just a minute. Mike Wallace, you catch what I'm saying? Yeah, thank you. We have become comfortable in making excuses. Thank you. Because you know what? Excuses are an easy way out of not getting victory. Well, I can't do, you ain't tried. And then you turned around and listened to other people who ain't trying nothing either. And so all y'all are is a bunch of non-trying people sitting back feeling sorry for yourself. And then you want somebody else to come along and rescue you from your misery. Woo, teach, Pastor. I'm doing the best I can because I feel like shouting. I'm trying to hold myself down. Are y'all catching what I'm saying? Here's what you need to understand. If you're being rescued is always predicated on another human being, you will never know the power of victory, because humans can't create victory. Humans can only experience victory. Oh, bless his name. I ran around the church Sunday with a whole lot of folk that I found out about it later on, didn't know they was doing it. I feel like doing a little lap right here in my basement. Are you catching what I'm saying? You can't create victory. You experience victory. God is the one who brings victory into your life. He is the one who causes you to have the abundant life. And you sitting around here talking about life has no meaning. I'm feeling so empty. Don't nobody love me. And please, please, please don't get mad at me when I say this, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Yeah, I'm going to say it. I am so tired of people, and they get on my last nerve, that they don't feel whole or fulfilled unless they got a pair of pants in the bed or a skirt in the bed. Now, let me help you. What do you do when the pants or the skirt leave? What do you do when the pants and the skirt don't want to be bothered with you? Because your self-worth has been placed into the hands of another flawed human being. But if you discover by faith who you are, they can walk out and you'll still be walking in victory. Okay. Minister Sean, did you catch that? Avery, did you catch that? Marilyn, did you catch that? Faye, did you catch that? Christine, did you catch that? Lisa, did you catch that? Denise, did you catch that? Daryl, did you catch that? PJ, all the way in Cincinnati, did you catch that? Carletta, did you catch that? If I'm empty, it's because I'm not going where I can get full. If I don't have self-esteem or self-worth, it's because I'm hanging around folk that ain't got none. And I'd rather be fruitful by myself than to be fruitful. I'd rather than to be fruitless with a bunch of people in my life. Let me say it one more time because I got tongue-tied. I'd rather be fruitful by myself than fruitless with a gang of fruitless people around me. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? You look at other people, and this happens on a Sunday morning. Everybody else is shouting. Everybody else is blessing. Everybody else is praising the Lord. Everybody else is doing this. And Terry A., did you catch that? Jakiko, did you catch that? Did you catch what I'm saying? D, did you catch that? Philly, Minister Philly, did you catch that? Okay, Minister Sharp, did you catch that? I want to know, did you catch it? Because see, here's the thing that you have to understand. You got to catch this. You've got to know this. You've got to recognize this without a shadow of a doubt. Because I can teach it to you, but you got to live it. And so what we see here is you get mad at other folk because they happy. Guess what? They still might be broke, but they happy. They still may have a broken heart because that person left them, but they happy. They still might be going through changes, but they're happy. They still may not be able to make all ends meet, but they're happy. And the reason that they're happy is because they know where they are is not where they will live the rest of their lives. Did you catch that, Daryl? Hear what I'm saying, Nancy. Here's what I'm saying. I'm going to live a fruitful life till the day the Lord calls me home or he shows up. If you are not experiencing the abundance, it's because you don't see God invading your ordinary with the extraordinary. Can I say that one more time? If you are glum, down, bent out of shape, and toe up, it's because you don't see God invade your ordinary with his extraordinary. And the reason that you are not experiencing the extraordinary is because you won't even exercise the faith that a hooker had. I know I lost some of y'all right there. If a hooker who has disconnected herself from the realities of existence can by faith trust the God of the Israelites to protect her, here you are with your baptized tongue-talking self. Here you are, mad at the world and mad at everybody because folk are having a good time in the Lord and you sitting there miserable all by yourself. The reason that you're there is because you won't step out in faith. You won't believe that Rahab had a choice. Her choice was to surrender the spies or put her trust in God. Can I say that one more time? She had a choice to surrender the spies or put her trust in God. And guess what she did? She put her trust in God. She put her trust in a God she never worshiped. She put her trust in a God whom she had never seen any physical manifestations of his existence. But she put her trust in a God she heard about. And because a hooker believed God, a prostitute believed God by lodging the spies, it was accounted to her as righteousness. Why? Because she's in the same hall of faith with Abraham. She's in the same hall of faith with every saint that died in faith. Rahab was considered righteous for what she did in lodging the spies and sent the soldiers out in a different direction. What am I saying? You need to understand clearly that something happened with Rahab. How many? Okay, I got 11 minutes. I got 11 minutes left. Jesus in the New Testament gives us a glimpse of what happened to Rahab. In the New Testament, James tells us that Abraham's faith was credited to him as righteousness, and it made him a friend of God. Being God's friend is the best thing that could ever happen to you. When Rahab put her trust in God through her actions, she received covenant love. Oh, that's the shout right there. When another human being does not love you, you can be loved by God in covenant. And the covenant love that she receives from a loyal friend. God is love. Not only is he love, God is the God of love. Everything that God does is saturated in love. I'm going to read a passage of scripture to you. Jesus says in John chapter 15, verses 14 and 15, this is from the Message Bible. You are my friends when you do the things I command you. I am no longer calling you servants because servants don't understand what their master is thinking or planning. No, I've named you friends because I've let you in on everything that I've heard from the Father. Get this. God says to a disjointed, disconnected, psychologically dysfunctional woman, because in the midst of her dysfunction, she was functional enough to recognize the God of the Israelites and to enter into covenant with them to save her and her family. And God moves her from hooker to friend. Aren't you glad that you serve a God who changed your name? Oh, I just need a couple of y'all to sign in on that one. I just need a couple of y'all. Aren't you glad that God took what you used to be and now calls you friend? I wish I had 3 or 4 folk. I see some of y'all done caught it. Okay, but I'm waiting on the rest of y'all to catch it. I mean, now you can fill in the blank of what you used to be. You can fill in the blank. Hey, Pastor Rogers, you can fill in the blank of what you used to do. You can fill in the blank of what you were in the past. But by faith, God transformed a hooker into a friend of God. And in the midst of that, Jesus says, the reason I call you friend is because our relationship is so close that I tell you what the Father's got on his mind. Man, if that's not a shout, I don't know what is. Jesus says, when you do what I ask you to do, he is not only your master and savior, but he's your friend. You know how we do with friends. You know we have conversation with friends that we don't have with nobody else. You know we tell friends all about ourselves. And the reason we don't worry about it is because they are really your friend. He whispers his secrets to you. He tells you what God tells him. And there is no greater friendship than when God calls you his friend. Why? Why is it important for God to be your friend? He knows the beginning to the end. And a friend won't let you fail. A friend may see you stumble but won't let you fall. A friend that if you do fall is right there to pick you up again. So what am I saying? When you know who you are, when you know whose you are, when you know God is your friend, that friendship brings healing. Get this, because I want you to catch this. Rahab's position and occupation will be permanently changed. She might have been a hooker on the wall, but God is going to spare her family. But the family will and her will no longer be where they were. Oh, help me to teach this, Jesus, like you want me to. Help me to get them to catch this. Help me to get this into their spirit. Too many of you are in the wall. Rather than letting the wall be torn down so that you can move on to a greater experience of life in God. This is the reason why you cannot allow your past to serve your future. She took the spies into her house. She hid them on the roof from the king's army. She did this in faith. It delivered her from an unbelievable situation. Not only that, but Rahab's faith delivered her family. James tells us that Rahab's faith did this by making a hooker holy. Can I say it one more time? James says, oh bless his name, that Rahab's faith made a hooker holy. God takes the inconsistencies, he takes the failures, he takes the shortcomings, the alcohol, the drugs, the relationships, the marriages, all of that stuff, and he transforms you into holiness by using it in your life. I'm to shout right there. What am I saying? Her name, because of her faith, has been placed in the chapter of the patriarchs of faith, the hall of faith found in Hebrews chapter 11. She was God's friend. She was covered by God's love manifested on the earth. Rahab's faith delivered her not only for eternity, but also in her history. Oh, Jesus. Can I say that? Can I say it one more time? Rahab's faith delivered her not only for eternity, but also in her history. You know when God has set you free. You know when God has delivered you. You know Because nobody remembers what you used to be like you. Nobody remembers the inconsistency, the hatefulness, the meanness, the two-faced no goodness that was in you. You know, when God transformed your life because you ceased to be the hooker. You ceased to be hateful and mean because God is calling you friend. And I'm going to tell you something. You may not like me, but God loves me. Pastor Rogers, did you get that? And when God loves me, I know how to love myself. And I don't need another human being to pump love into me. I already got love in me. Did you catch that, Minister Owens, Minister Sean? Did y'all catch that? So, ladies and gentlemen, I got to go. I've done all I can do, and I can't do no more. My time is up. I love you. I love each and every one of you. I thank God for you taking this hour out of your time to be with me, that we can grow and become what God would have us to be. Well, I got to go now. My time is up. May God bless you. May he keep you, is our prayer.